Well, hey everybody, today we are going to be doing a special 1 week message that's kind of all about a topic that I think is really important to every single one of us because it's an opportunity for you and I to have kind of a dialogue to talk about something that's really important in your life right now. And so today we're going to dive into this kind of serious topic, but we want you to understand this is a really important conversation for all of us to have. And so what we want you to understand is that here at Identity, as a part of the ministry of New Hope Church, we want you to know that we've created a space for teens just like you to really talk about anything that's going on in your life. It's a safe place to ask questions, to have conversations about difficult and even confusing things. And even if it's awkward or uncomfortable or hard to understand, we really do believe that you are mature enough to have these kind of conversations with us. And so today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the topic of consent. Now, you may wonder, well, what does that word mean? Well, to get us all on the same page, we're going to define consent this way. That consent means to give permission for something to happen, or to agree to do something or allow something to take place. So consent is to give permission for something to happen, or to agree to do something or allow something to take place. So let me give you a few examples of this. So when your little sister wants to come in and borrow some of your clothes, you're giving them consent to wear it. Or when you let somebody play on your brand new video game system, you're giving them consent to use it. Or when somebody asks to take your picture and you agree, you're giving them consent to snap the picture. So usually when we use this word consent, it's in a conversation that's more serious. It's usually about what, somebody does or doesn't want to do when it comes to things like relationships, dating, or physical touch. And those are all a really big deal. And they have the potential to change us, for the good or for the worse, sadly. But what we're going to talk about today is this idea of consent and how it has the potential to change us both in the way we treat others and in the way that we let others treat us. Now, maybe you're thinking to yourself, well, this really doesn't matter to me yet. Why? Because for some of you, maybe you say, well, a lot of the adults in my life typically have control over what I can and cannot do. And sometimes it feels like there's really not a whole lot that you can choose for yourself. And when you look at it that way, I understand why you would say consent is not something that, really matters to you right now. But here's the thing, is that may be true of the really big and obvious parts of your life, but you have more options, things that you can say yes and no to. In fact, more than you might think. You actually have opportunities to give your consent every single day, especially when it comes to things like relationships or dating or physical touch. You have the power to say yes or to say no. And believe me, I understand it's easier for some of us to say yes, and it's easier for some of us to say no. But no matter how challenging it may be for you to say no to something you don't want, it's important that you understand you have the power to choose for yourself so that you can speak up for yourself. And it's okay to expect others to listen to and respect your answer. Now, maybe talking about this topic of consent, it feels difficult for you because maybe you've been in situations where you didn't want somebody to do something and they didn't respect your answer when you said no to something. Maybe you've been asked to do things that you didn't like or didn't feel comfortable doing. You didn't want to do it. You weren't comfortable with it, but you felt pressured by somebody else to give in. Or maybe in that moment, you just didn't know what to do. You didn't know how to express how it made you feel, or the fact that you didn't want to do it. Or maybe you did speak up and the other person just didn't listen. Or you didn't consent for them to talk to you, to touch you, to text you, or to treat you in a certain way, but they did it anyway. And in case nobody has ever told you this before, I want you to hear something. That's not okay. And I'm genuinely sorry that that happened to you. And I hope you'll find time to talk to somebody. Maybe it's a parent or a leader or a coach or a teacher or somebody that you can talk to help navigate what it felt like when you had your consent ignored. Because that's why we're here. Because ultimately, consent is really about the way that we treat each other. Consent is about the way that we treat each other. Now, that means that in the same way that you have a responsibility to give your consent, you also have the responsibility to respect the consent of other people. Now, sometimes I get this feels like a really difficult thing to navigate in your friendships or, kind of more than a friendship. And maybe that's because when it comes to friendships or dating relationships, you're thinking more about what you want than what's best for the other person. Or maybe instead of thinking about what's right, or best for the other person, maybe you're just thinking, what can I really get away with? I mean, maybe the person even said yes initially, but then they changed their mind and they told you no, and that gets really confusing. So the question for you and I today is, what do we do with all this? When it comes to consent, how do we choose to respect ourselves and respect others? Well, for me personally, when I'm not sure what to do or how to navigate a difficult or confusing conversation, I look to one person that I know I can trust to guide me towards what's best. And it's a typical answer. It's the answer of Jesus. That's who I look to. Because when we look back at the events of Jesus' life that are recorded in the Gospels, the first 4 books of the New Testament, we see him doing all kinds of things. But we never see Jesus disrespecting, dishonoring, or disregarding people. We don't see him choosing what's best for himself over what's best for others. We don't see him doing anything other than leading with love and with respect. And his example is the ultimate example of what it looks like to love and respect other people. So I think that gives us enough validity of why we can trust his words. And so today what I want to do is I want to look at something that Jesus said that can help us start this conversation in the right place. So in John chapter 15, Jesus says these words, "My command is this, love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friend." You see, basically Jesus is saying here, look at the way I'm treating you. Look at the way that I care and respect and honor you. Look at the way that I put what's best for you over what's best for me. That's what love really looks like. And that's what I want you to do for people around you too. Now, Jesus isn't asking you to literally lay down your life like he did for us, but he is asking for us to pay attention to what's best for other people. He's asking us to listen to and to respect the words and the needs and the consent of others first. But the conversation on consent doesn't stop there, because later in the New Testament, we read a letter from a guy named Paul, who wrote to new, kind of early Christians who were following Jesus in Rome. And Paul was a leader in the early Christian church. And because of that, he had a ton of influence in the lives of people who believed in Jesus back then. And so he wanted to see his influence grow, to encourage them, to support them. And he wanted to share with them wisdom on how they could live out the message of Jesus, just like the words we just read from the Gospel of John. So let's look at something that Paul said in his letter to the church at Rome that can help us understand what this really looks like for you and I today. In Romans chapter 12, he says, "Be devoted to one another in love. Honor one another above yourselves." So Paul is basically saying that one way that we can show others that we care about them is by honoring them. Now, honor is another way of saying this, of how we treat each other and ourselves with respect. So honor is another way of saying this is how we treat each other and ourselves with respect. When we honor someone else, we show them respect with words and actions and thoughts and behaviors. We listen and we respect their consent. When somebody doesn't want to go out with you, you respect that and you stop asking. When somebody doesn't want you to see, when somebody doesn't want to see the pictures that you want to send them, you don't send them. When somebody doesn't want you to talk to them, you don't keep talking to them. You see, honoring someone else means not only respecting their consent, but it also means not putting them in a situation that makes them feel uncomfortable or disrespected. It means choosing what's best for them, even if that's the opposite of what you want to do in that particular moment. That's what honor looks like when we actually do it. And every single one of us deserve to be honored. So let's take a look back at the first part of that verse that Paul wrote that we just looked at. He says, be devoted to each other. Be devoted to each other, which means that you have to be committed to treating each other this way. When you're devoted, you're loyal to it every day. It's not just something that you do casually, it's literally the way that we live. And when it comes to consent, that means being committed to treating somebody else with love and respect and honor all the time. Talking about consent and asking for permission, that's literally a lifestyle. And as much as we should honor others, we should expect to be treated with that same honor. It's a standard that you and I can ask for. In other words, you could say it this way: you can choose to honor yourself and others. You can choose to honor yourself and others. And when someone doesn't honor you or someone gets angry that you ask to be honored, that's a sign. It's a signal for you and I that we need to take a step back from that relationship or a step back from that person who doesn't want what's best for us. Now, again, I understand that this conversation may be incredibly complicated for some of you because some of you may have already had your consent ignored or disrespected. Or maybe you're recognizing for the first time that you haven't actually honored someone else's consent. But either way, you can begin to honor yourself and others today by talking about this with someone that you trust. So we encourage you to let a trusted adult into your life. Maybe it's a parent, an aunt, an uncle, a grandparent, a pastor, a teacher, a small group leader. Help them, let them into your life so they can help you understand this topic of honor and help you through it. Because it's never too late to start over. It's never too late to speak up. And it's never too late to love yourself and others the way that Jesus calls us to do it, which is with honor. So again, choose to honor yourself and others. And you say, okay, that's great, but how do I actually do that? How do I actually show somebody the honor that he or she deserves? Well, first is this: choose to honor others. Choose to honor others. Remember, choosing honor is a decision that we have to make. We have to choose to treat other people with respect. You see, so much of consent boils down to just listening to the other person, paying attention to their words, their actions, and even their body language. Decide what you're going to listen to and respect when they're saying it, and how that's going to affect how you treat them when it comes to consent. So the first thing is choose to honor others. Second, expect to be honored by others. Decide how you want to be treated and honored right now. Then you'll know how you want to be honored by others, and you'll know that that's not being honored or respected when it happens. So expect to be honored by others. And then finally, speak up with confidence. Speak up with confidence. You're allowed to use your voice to express what's okay and what's not okay with you. So if you want to say stop to somebody, you can say that. If you want to say no to somebody, you can say that. Even if you've said yes in the past, even if you're not sure how the other person's going to feel, even if you're scared, you can speak up about what you want and what you feel like is best for you. So speak up with confidence. Now, I get that this is really easy to talk about, but in real life, speaking up for yourself can be really hard. And that's why we want you to have people in your life that you can talk through confidently and express your doubts and your questions and wrestle with this. And if somebody doesn't respect your no, don't be ashamed to share that with a trusted adult. What happened to you is not your fault. And so you shouldn't have to have gone through that. but you can honor yourself by telling somebody who can help you. And if you've already told an adult and you didn't get the help that you needed or wanted, then tell another adult that you trust. Take a minute to think about who that adult could be, who that person could be for you in your life. So as we wrap this up today, remember to choose to honor yourself and others. Choose to honor yourself and others. And doing this has the potential to make really big changes in your life and in my life and in our relationships. It has the potential to change the way that we treat others and the way that we expect others to treat us. So thanks so much for checking out this individual standalone message. Let's talk about consent. We hope it's been helpful to you. We also hope that you will take time to invite somebody into your life to talk about these things, because this is a very difficult and challenging thing. But as you go through this next week, I encourage you to choose to honor others, expect to be honored by others, and then finally speak up with confidence. And if you do each of those things, you'll begin to love others and to be loved by others the way that Jesus tells us to do it and the way that Paul tells us to do it. We hope that you've enjoyed this message. Have a great and wonderful rest of your day and a fantastic week. We hope to see you soon. Again, we meet every Sunday night from 6 to 8 p.m. in the youth room at New Hope Church. We'd love to see you. Have a great and wonderful rest of your day.